Today is July the 22nd, 2014. My name is Tanya Finchum along with Juliana Nykolaiszyn. We're with Oklahoma State University Library, and today we're in Gould, Oklahoma, Harmon County, to speak with Jimmy and Mary Paul Williams, and this is part of our Centennial Farm Families project, so thank you for having us today.
Thank you.
Let's start with having you tell us how the family came to own the land to begin with.
Okay. My grandfather is Harry W. Payne, and he homesteaded this land. Actually, he first filed his papers in 1901, and then of course they have to improve it and all, and it's finalized 5 years later. But an interesting thing that we found when we were kind of preparing for the interview is that my granddad was born in 1881, and on the homestead affidavit he says that he is a male and so forth, and that he is at least 21 years of age.
At least.
He says here over the age of 21, I guess he says in his writing there. And of course at that time, if you do the math on it, he was only 20. So I don't know whether 21 was a requirement and he fudged just a little bit, or I don't know exactly what the deal was, but we that came up in our research. We thought it was kind of interesting.
Do you know how he chose this particular piece of property? Any idea?
I really don't. He was originally from, he used to say Forkia County, Virginia, which is just right south of Washington, D.C., I think. And his family moved to Texas, and then he came on up here in 1901, and I really don't know why he chose the area. I guess he was interested in ranching and farming, and it was available, and so he...
Was he married at that time?
No, he was not. No, he got married during the waiting time between the time that he homesteaded and the time that his papers were actually finalized while he was improving the property. He got married in 1905. So,
to a local girl?
Yes, she was. Her family had moved up and homesteaded a little ways south of where my granddad had homesteaded, and her maiden name was Richardson, and they got married in 1905.
Well, on the original property, when he was first living here, did he produce crops or livestock, or how did he make his living?
Yes, both, I think, crops and livestock. When it talks about the improvements that he had made, it indicates that he had dug a well and built a pond and planted a small orchard and put a fence around the property. And so I think he was, producing small grains, and maybe had maybe a milk cow at least, and I don't know how much more livestock he had. But later, he got real active in the livestock business. He had quite a few cattle. Any
idea what type of fence?
I think it was a barbed wire fence.
Okay.
I think it was.
Some have been Bodart.
Oh, he may have used Bodart post. I don't know. Yeah, he could have. Yeah.
And some of the buildings, as time came along, what were done on what was built?
As far as I know, he had a small home, and it faced the west there on the county road, and then he had a shed behind it that was more of a shop and probably some storage shed, and then there was a small shed that was more for horse, livestock, milk cow, that sort of thing. And he dug a cistern. There's still you can still see the cistern where the homestead location was today, and he dug a windmill, and so I know of those things that were there, and I really don't. Oh, he built a pond also. So, but I really don't know of other building structures that he had there.
And then once he was finished, did you pass on to a child or his son or daughter, or what? Take us through the ownership
okay.
to this point.
My mother was born in 1917, And in 1938, when she was fixing to turn 21 years old, and she and my dad were talking about getting married, he gave it to her as a birthday present. We got to noticing when we were doing preparation for the interview that Granddad had put a loan on it with the Landmark Association in 1923. And it was a long-term loan. I think the loan, the best we could figure out, was for 36 years, wasn't it?
So,
36 years, payments twice a year. And so it still carried quite a bit of payments on it whenever he gave it away. So she assumed, that loan that was against it also when she inherited it in 38. But of course he had been paying down on it. He had been paying on it for 15 years, so, it was paid down quite a bit. The original amount of the loan, I was surprised at the amount, but the original amount of the loan was $4,500. So in 1923, $4,500 was quite a lot of money.
What did she do with the farm then?
She and my dad farmed it for years and years. They gave it to us in 1993.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. They gave it to us later, but it was it had some grassland on it, and it was a majority a wheat farm.
And at that point that it came into your hands, were there any more buildings?
No.
Any more ponds?
Yes, there were additional ponds dug through the years. There were 2 more ponds.
Did you participate in some of the conservation efforts?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was placed in the CRP program in, I believe, 1987, and it's been in the CRP program ever since. There's been opportunities to re-sign it into the CRP program, and so it hasn't been in wheat production for several years, but it's been in grass.
Were you born on the farm?
No, it was not. No, I was born in Holliston.
Did you remember coming out to the farm and visiting grandparents?
No, I don't. No, actually, in 1933, they built a new home up on what was then going to be the highway, Highway 62. They were 1.5 miles or 1.75 miles south of the highway, and of course their home was small, and they had 4 children. And my granddad liked to acquire additional land, and every time he'd get a few dollars together, there was pretty hard times between 1929 and 1933, but every time he'd get a few extra dollars together, he would buy an additional farm. And my mother used to laugh at this story. He came home one day and said, "Lenny, I bought another farm." And she said, "Now, Harry, if you've got money to buy another farm, you can build me a home." And so that very afternoon, my mother used to say that he went up and staked the location for a new home. So in 33, they built a new home up on the highway.
And what year were you born?
I was born in 44.
44, so.
But we don't know anybody that can remember the house or barns actually being there. So tell them what you think may have happened to it.
My granddad believed in salvaging and using everything. And when I was a kid, and we moved out to the farm, to the new home, in 1957. My family lived in Gould, and Granddad was moving to California, retired, and was fixing to move to California. And so we moved out to the farm in 1957, and when we moved out there were some old barns and stuff out there. And I just feel like maybe perhaps that he salvaged the home and some of those other barns and built those barns, at the new place.
That happened a lot too.
Yeah.
Or they moved them,
Yeah.
completely moved them somewhere else.
Yeah. But there was.
So in 57 you would have been 13-ish. Did you have chores?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, we all had chores, and we were active in FFA and 4-H and stuff, and so we had our own cattle and hogs, and showed livestock and stuff. And but we we were operating machinery, and my dad used to say that I started driving a tractor when I was 7, so I was pretty young when started driving a tractor, but yeah, we were the only hands he had.
What more do you remember about that first tractor?
Well, it was an old Moline, you know, just kind of step on and step off type old Moline. And, you know, you move pretty slow. You had time to jump off and chase a rabbit if you needed to, but it moved pretty slow. But there was 3 boys. My mom and dad had 3 boys, and so we were the farm hands.
Or what were some of the chores you were required to do specifically for yourself?
Take care of my projects, and then, you know, through the years, maybe I'd have my own patch of cotton or my own wheat or something. They had their own projects and stuff in their own.
You said you had to clean out your chicken shed.
Yeah, I had to clean out the chicken house.
You didn't like that,
Yeah,
did
yeah.
And who got the chore of slaughtering the chickens?
Well, I would help, yeah. So we'd raise some broilers and stuff, you know, and so we'd wring their heads and hang them on a clothesline.
That's what
Yeah.
Juliana's usually question is, what was your method?
Yeah.
Everybody has a different method.
Oh, yeah. We'd wring their necks and you twist them and then pull and hang them on a clothesline and let them bleed. Yeah. Mary Paul would never do that. She was a
No.
city girl.
Yeah.
Well, what would you do for fun?
You know, we were real active in community and church stuff, and so, you know, there was always church dinners and all that kind of stuff, and of course high school sports and so forth. We weren't far from the school. And I can remember there was a big rodeo at Vernon in those days, the Santa Rosa Roundup. And that would be a big deal if we, you know, if harvest didn't interfere, if we got to go down and watch the parade or something. Maybe not go to the rodeo, but go down and watch the parade. And then we, on occasion, we got family vacations. And so it, you know, and I had grandparents that lived, you know, here, on both sides. And so, you know, there was lots of family get-togethers and that sort of thing. Playing with cousins.
You rode your horse down
Rode a
that
horse a
railroad
lot,
track to
yeah.
Google?
Yeah,
Tell them about that.
yeah. In those days, when we lived out on the highway, there was a half a mile behind the house, there was a railroad track. And so we had a gate going onto the railroad track. And so, you know, you could stay off the highway that way by riding your horse to town. So we'd ride our horse to town on Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon or something a lot of times. There'd be other people there too.
Town of Gould?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it called Gould then?
Yes, it was, yeah.
I read somewhere it's changed its name several times through
Yeah,
the years.
yeah, it has. It was Gibson originally, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so it has, yeah.
And was the school close by then? Was it
Yes,
at that time?
yes. School's
Gould? Gould?
Uh-huh, yes.
And was religion or church an important part of?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it certainly was, yeah. We went to church every time the door opened, I guess, and involved in RAs and GAs and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it was very important. I was saved at the church there in Gould and when I was 9 years old, and during the revival service. And so it was always very important. The church itself is not there now. It closed in
2002?
yeah, I believe it was 2002.
No, five, after your dad died.
It was
After
after
his
that
last-
service. Yeah.
It was one of the last things they had.
And my parents passed away. Mother passed away in 2002, and Dad passed away in 2005. And his funeral service may have been one of the last things that was there. And so after it closed, they took the building down and stuff.
Well, can you describe the house that you lived in the 50s when you came to the farm?
Before I came to the farm,
Mm-hmm.
when I lived in Gould,
No,
when I came to the
when you
farm.
came to the farm.
sure, yeah, it was
It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. It was a large stone house made out of native stone. It had a full basement underneath it, and it was the floors and the ceilings were all hardwood.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful
it's
ceilings.
really, you know, it's really pretty. And my parents lived there until Dad passed away, and since then it's been vacant, but the home is still there.
And did you have to share a room?
No, I didn't. You know, when I was young, we did, you know, because we preferred to, you know, to share a room. But later, the boys all had separate rooms. In the summertime, sometimes we'd even sleep down in the basement because it's so much cooler.
How was it heated?
It had a gas furnace. That was a floor furnace type gas furnace. And then later, that was done away with, and it was central heat and air when I was, from the time I was probably in junior high school.
Well, by the 50s, I would assume it had running water.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah,
electricity.
Yeah, electricity, yeah. Sure did.
And when you would take things to the market, would it be Gould or a different town?
Generally, it was Gould. There was actually, in those days, there was actually 2 elevators in Gould in the 50s, and then one of the elevators was burned, and another one was built, and it was when the new one was built, it kind of consolidated the two.
And for the cotton?
Cotton, there was a gin. There was actually, I don't remember when they started closing, but there was 2 gins in Gould too. So there was lots of business in Gould. You're talking about electricity. Did have electricity. Gould got electricity in 1937, I think was what I used to say. And Granddad was involved in the local co-op grocery. So when Gould got electricity, there was a large ice box that they had been using, in the grocery store. And my grandmother was real big in canning. And so Granddad took that ice box out and put it in the basement out there in the home for her to put her canned goods and stuff in. And so we have that there in the entryway now, that old ice boxes.
But the good part of the story is that they later added on to the house. And when you came up out of the basement, that old icebox would no longer come out because you turned a corner then to get up into it. So that was stuck down there forever, and he had varnished it, no telling how many times, and it had a purple, would just look purple where he varnished it so many times. And so for my birthday in something, I've forgotten what year it was. Anyway,
Late 90s.
he had a man come down and surprise me, and he took that icebox apart piece by piece, brought it out, refinished it, put it back together, and we'll show it to you in a little while. It's just amazing, but it's quite a
story.
quite a story. It's quite a project.
So she did a lot of canning.
Yes, my grandmother did a lot of canning.
Was she a member of a homemaker club?
Yes, yeah, she sure was. Yeah. We have a quilt out there that is a community quilt that, had all the ladies in the community, put their names on it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was very, it was a big part of their life, the community in those days. And your community, the area was populated enough that, you didn't have to go far for another farm home.
Do you happen to remember the name of the club? There's some unique ones out there. We're just curious if you happen to remember.
I don't, no.
Well, did your father use the county agent?
Oh, sure.
Cooperative Extension?
Yeah, we've always, been, used them for information and we've even had wheat plots on our land through the years, and, been, partner with them in a lot of different areas, yeah.
And took part in county fairs?
You bet, yeah. When I was a kid and when my children were growing up, and, when we got married in 1967, and our oldest son came along in 68, and we got married in January 67, and he was born in March of 68, and so then by 76, we had 4 children. We were living in a house. And so in the summertime, especially in the summertime, I'd leave when it's still dark and come home when it's still dark. And we started talking about building a new home.
That's a good deal.
And so Mary Paul said, well, if we're going to build a new home, we're going to build one out there closer to where you work, closer to where you are. So that's when we came out here and built our home out here. And so the kids were always being out in the country where we could do it. They were always really well involved in show animals and that sort of thing.
So your entire career has been on the farm?
Yes.
Have you had supplemental jobs out?
Really, I haven't much. you know, when we came home,
No, there's no much to
started
it. You
farming.
haven't.
No, I really haven't. No.
No.
Served on some boards that pay a little bit or something like that, but no, it's been agriculture. Yeah.
Well, did your father and grandfather have jobs off the farm?
No,
No.
no, they were full-time farmers also.
So let's back up a little bit. You were born in 44,
Uh-huh.
graduated high school in
62,
62, and then continued to farm at that point, or did you go to college or?
Well, in '62, went to Oklahoma State and finished a BS in agronomy with a major in small grains in spring of '67. And Mary Paul was still liked about a year, and so I started working on my master's and did about 32 hours on my master's in ag econ, and pretty well had it finished, but you had to take a comp exam that I never did. We got ready to come home and start farming, so we never did finish the comp exams and stuff, but I did all the coursework for that.
And did you finish?
I did.
And what was yours?
Accounting.
Okay.
Accounting major.
And what year?
I graduated in January '67. I graduated a semester early from college, and Robert was born in March, and he finished his work in May, and we came home.
And life got busy.
Yep. Yep.
And you passed your CPA after Robert's born.
Yeah, it was a busy semester.
Yeah.
It was.
Did you live on campus when you?
Right off campus, we lived in Scholars Inn, which was right there by Gallagher Iba. They just tore it down about 2 years ago and made a parking lot out of it. I couldn't believe it. And they're fixed to tear down my business building.
They did
Is it gone?
yesterday. They started
Oh,
Hanner Hall.
Well, we saw where Hannah was going down. They haven't started
Oh.
taking the business building.
Oh
yet.
no,
My
you're
business
right.
building.
Hanner started
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
So business not yet.
and his
Yeah.
dad stayed in Hanner Hall
Yeah.
when he went to OSU.
So I should have snuck your brick.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah.
You should have.
Well, he was there in 1932, I think, wasn't it?
3, something around
Yeah,
there.
32 or 3 line or something.
Did he graduate from OSU?
No, he did not.
He
No,
just-
no, he didn't graduate, but he went to school there for a little while.
And your mother went to school there
And
for
she
a while.
did. Yeah, she did.
They didn't either one graduate, but
Well, why did you decide to go to OSU?
Well, I was always interested in agriculture, and that was the place to go when you wanted to study agriculture, and so I went to Oklahoma State.
the county agent and county, those offices have always been real important in the county and an agriculture community, and just a lot of kids went there. It's just kind of the place to go.
Did you go to Roundup when you were in high school?
You know, I
for-
didn't.
4-H?
I went to state FFA conventions at Stillwater and some of that kind of stuff, but I don't think I ever went to 4-H Roundup.
And our kids did.
Yeah, our kids did.
Linda did a lot.
Most of the time in the summer, I was tied up. We didn't take many of those kind of trips in summer.
Well, while we're talking about children in OSU, do you want to go ahead and say about your children
Oh, yeah.
a little bit?
You wanna
Go
do it?
ahead. You're doing good.
We have 4 children, and the oldest 3 are all OSU graduates, and all of their spouses. And then we have our baby, who was an OBU undergraduate, and his wife. Both are OBU, and then he went to OU med school. But those 3 children and their spouses were OSU graduates, and now we have 1 grandson who's graduated from OSU, and 3 grandchildren who are up there right now. And there'll be several more until we get down to that baby's kids, and then they won't make it to OSU. But
Oh, you never know.
well, anyway, we anticipate having some more, but it's we're pretty well an OSU family.
Well, when you were on campus back in the 60s, did you have a favorite hangout spot?
Well, I was an HER, and so we kind of hung out there and so forth. But of course, the ag halls were there. You had north and south in those days, and so a lot of activities there that you tended to and stuff. And actually, we knew each other a little bit in high school, but that's where we connected. Was Mary Paula had a class in ag hall of all places, and
I had a
she-
sociology class
yeah.
over there.
Yeah, so.
You didn't venture to the library?
Oh,
We
yeah,
did,
well,
yes,
on
we
occasion.
did. But he found it a lot more after we got married or after he met me than before
My
me.
grades got better after we got married.
His mother was thrilled.
It's
Just,
funny how that works.
and it happened with our kids too. The same thing. Our boys they married girls who helped them find their way over to the library. So, but I can't believe they're tearing down the business building. It was state of the art when I went. I went to OBU for a year first, and then I transferred to OSU, and that business building was just fabulous. And they had the new IBM Selectric typewriters, which we thought were just unbelievable. Just, times have changed.
What's that? Oh.
Not me. Maybe someone's phone. Well, growing up, you went to school, you studied agriculture. Was it always your intention to come back and work on the farm?
You know, when I first started, I don't know as I knew that's what I was going to do, but as it went along, and you know, then I met Mary Paul, and we knew we wanted to have a family, and we thought this would be a wonderful place to raise kids, and so then we decided that, you know, we would come back and get involved in the farming operation. Prior to that, well, you know, I had, you know, done some interviews with Purina and Wilson and some of the companies of the day that, you know, were good and could have gotten, you know, jobs with them, but we chose to come back home and go into farming and raise kids. Yeah.
And were you in partnership with your parents?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when we came back, well, we kind of formed a partnership and farmed in that way. And we added quite a few land through the years. And in 1979, we formed a family corporation, and then continued to add some land through the corporation and worked that way.
So the original acreage of the Centennial Farm was?
The original amount was just 80 acres.
Okay.
But that place now, under one fence, is a half section, 320 acres.
Okay. So your grandparents added approximately how many acres to their operation?
How many acres that joined that farm?
Yep.
Well, they bought a quarter that joins it, and then later when my dad had it, he bought an 80 that joins it. So they actually expanded that 80 to 240, and then Dad later bought another 80 that joins it. So it kind of lays in an L.
And your siblings weren't interested in farming? Your siblings?
No. One of my brothers we lost in a farm accident in 1965 when he was 15. And then my other brother went into pharmacy. And so he and his wife were both pharmacists, and he wasn't interested in going into farming. Yeah.
But they do own some land.
Yeah, they own quite a lot of land. And the family
Inherited
corporation, we're an LLC now, but the family farms it.
And the total acreage in your family business is approximately?
In the whole business,
Mm-hmm.
the rented acres and everything, we operate about 9,000 acres.
Okay. So you've seen lots of changes in agriculture through the years.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's been lots of, you know, whenever I was young, you know, we cultivated it all, and, you know, you get plowed over one time and you get a shower or something, you just start back over, so you know, you spend all summer plowing with, you know, 10, 13 foot Amy plows or something, you know, something. Just takes a while to do, and you ran several of those. And then when my children were younger, well, you know, the equipment was much larger, but we still, you know, plowed it all and spent most of the summer, you know, plowing over and over. For the last 6 years now, we've been completely no-till. We don't plow any ground, and we spray it generally about 4 times during the summer season, and then plant it with a big air seeder no-till drill, and you know, the conservation benefits from it are much greater. We don't have any soil erosion. We don't have any you know, wind blowing. You know, this area is just coming out. I hope it's coming out anyway, of a 4-year drought, and you know, a lot of the a lot of the people who study that sort of thing say that actually this drought has been worse in this area than it was in the 30s. And so without so much no-till in this area, you know, it would have been a dust bowl like they experienced, I feel. But because of the modern farming techniques and so forth, why, you know, we've come through it, and the soil and everything's still in good shape. And, you know, if we can get into a more normal rain pattern where, you know, we'll get back into the business of producing wheat, when we first started this, our oldest son farms with us, and you know, he was anxious to go to no-till, and when wheat prices were cheap, we made a living off of cattle, you know, grazing cattle in the wintertime, and grazing out wheat, and you know, growing the stockers to a large size before we shipped them in May or something. And that had just been the way that we made a living through the years, because wheat prices were below the cost of production. And so Robert was anxious to go to a no-till operation, and I was real reluctant to do that because I thought that it would, you know, the pasture benefits would not be near as much as when we. And we've been pleasantly surprised that, you know, our pasture is probably as good or better, and our cattle have gained better, you know, because of, you know, when you do get a wet spell, why that no-till doesn't bog and so forth like plowed ground does. And so we've been real pleased with the benefits of no-till. It has, you know, that has really worked well for us.
Have a lot of your neighbors started moving to no-till?
Yes, they have. Actually, the majority of this area now is no-till. It sure is. Yeah, and I think most people have been real pleased with it. Yeah. It's been very good.
When you were younger, did your parents and grandparents participate in rings, harvesting rings?
You know, I'm sure they all worked together when it came harvesting time, because I know Granddad had a threshing machine that, you know, you had to bring the wheat to. But I don't really know as they called them rings. I don't really know. But he always had some help. And I know they used to tell the story about when they lived in the new house back in World War II. Granddad's son, he had one son and 3 daughters, and his son and my dad were both involved in the farming operation. They both went to war. And so he had a couple of 16-year-old boys from Hollis that came out and lived in the basement and worked there all summer, you know, during harvest and everything. And so one of them's still around today, and every time I see him, he tells me the story about staying, you know, at grandmother's. And actually, I was a baby, just a few months old. And so he said, you know, I helped take care of you in here.
Your mother was living there with your
yeah.
grandparents.
Yeah,
while
my
your
dad was
was
gone to war, mother was living there, so, yeah. Yeah, so he actually was later on superintendent of schools at Hollis for several years and involved in the banking in Hollis. And but he still likes to tell me, Mr. Cummins still likes to tell me about staying at Granddad's house.
I think the equipment has changed since I've been involved in it.
Oh, yeah.
The first summer that we were going together and pretty serious, I mean, I was a city girl, I lived in Hollis, so I came over here and was going to go watch him cut wheat the first time. And his mother, this is another one of her favorite stories, that I came out all fixed up, you know, and had on some white shorts, and we went out there. Of course, the combine he rode didn't have a cab on it. It was just open air cab, and it was, the wheat was real, had a lot of smut in it. And his face was just black, and all you could see was the white of his eyes. And she said, I got out of the pickup and I said, oh. She said, I didn't know whether you were going to stay then or not. But since then,
yes.
I mean, tell them the difference. I mean, the equipment just, since your dad has died in 05, has changed
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, all of our equipment now, our combine and our tractors, and it's all, you know, satellite driven, auto steer, and computers. And so, you know, the combine, it'll tell you what it's making in a certain area, and maps the production as you go along. And then the tractor is auto steered. Basically, all you do is turn it around the end. You know, you set the length of whatever you're pulling, whether you're pulling an air seeder, or whether you're pulling a sprayer, or what you're pulling, and it lines itself back up and goes back again. And we've gone, everything has gone to what we call precision farming, which means that we've gone out and taken soil samples on all this land in very small locations, 5 to 10 acres, taking many samples on each quarter, and mapped all of those of the soil type and production capabilities. And then we take those production maps through the years and we overlay all of those together and put them in a computer on the air seeder, and then the air seeder varies the rate of fertilizer and varies the rate of seed according to the capability of production of the land. And so we've been really pleased with that. It's actually lowered our fertilizer costs because we were putting a given amount of fertilizer on the whole thing, and some of the areas weren't capable of producing as much as our goal was, and some of them were capable of more. So actually our overall fertilizer use has actually gone down since we started the precision farming part, where we vary rates and vary amounts of seeding. So we've been, it's just modern agriculture, and as much as it's changed in the last 10 years, what's it going to be like in the future?
Can't imagine.
You can't imagine it.
And having to keep up with those changes.
Yeah.
Financially
Yeah.
and mentally.
Okay. Yes.
It's good when you got a young partner. We're actually kind of semi-retired, and Robert does most of the biggest part. This week he's gone to Nicaragua on a mission trip, he and his family, and so, but he does the majority of that sort of stuff.
Well, I understand the 80s were tough in Oklahoma for farmers. Do you have anything you want to say about that time period?
Well, they were very tough. Commodity prices had risen pretty sharply in the late 70s, and with the commodity prices, of course, land values had gone up, and we had, we were still in a growth mode, and so, we had bought additional land, and so then you got into the early 80s when commodity prices fell, and hence land values fell, and land values in our area probably decreased about 50%, and we were not over leveraged, so we didn't have any difficulty really in making our land payments, but many in our area did, and there was a lot of land sales and a lot of foreclosures and a lot of that sort of thing, so it's really tough. But when you have land and you've leveraged some land to buy other land, and then it breaks in value by 50%, it makes it really tough. And in those days, the increase in land value was based primarily on commodity prices increases, and it was mostly farmers buying land and pushing up the prices. And in today's land market, in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen land just about double again, since in the last 5 years in this area. But this time it's based a little bit differently. I feel like it's based more on investment dollars, and a lot of outside investors are purchasing some of the land, and farmers who have the money and want to invest it in land are doing so. I don't feel like that it may decrease in value somewhat because when commodity prices fall, which they are in the process, cereal grains are breaking in the last few weeks. But I don't think that we're going to see a break like we did in the early 80s. We would definitely probably see a cooling down of land values, but I don't think we'll see a situation like we did in the early 80s.
Was there a point at any point in time when you thought, oh, let's get out of the business?
I don't really think there was. We adjusted our farming somewhat in those days. We tried to cut down the expenses as much as possible. We ran cattle and tried to put gain on cattle, buy them lighter and grow them larger. Things we just made adjustments in our operations, but I don't think we really never did consider selling out or doing something different. We just made adjustments and
Probably the worst shock to my system was the first summer we came home, and we were still living in Hollis, and this was before the days of crop insurance. And we had our wheat crop in the field, and we had 1/4 then that was ours, and stood on our front porch in Hollis and watched the hail cloud go over and wipe out your wheat crop. And you know, that does make you kind of think about it again. But the ability to have insurance has
It's made a tremendous
made
amount
a
of difference.
tremendous amount of difference in your ability to survive from year to year.
Large farmers today are, risk management is one of the main things that they spend time on, whether it be hedging or buying options on your feeder cattle supply, or whether it be, marketing your grain, or whether it be just deciding what level of insurance you want to cover on crop insurance, that sort of thing. But it's in those days, in the late 70s, early 80s, we didn't have many of those options. And so for modern day farmers that use that sort of thing, and most of them who are large farmers do, then it's a completely different world than it was then.
Keep an eye on the weather at all times.
That's right.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, these last 3 years have shown that, 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I mean, you all are seeing it at its height of beauty right now, that it has not been this green in years. It's just so refreshing the rain we just had.
Are the ponds almost full or full?
Many of them are. Many of them have filled up. Now, some of them are not. Some of them are not, not full yet. So, and I think it's partly because of the no-till. We don't get the runoff on some of those farms, some of those ponds that we used to get. The water stays more where it fell. So there's good benefit from that. Yeah, there is. Yep.
You mentioned the drought conditions over the last 4 years. Can you think of any other weather conditions that have impacted the farming over the last, say, 20 to 30 years?
Well, by impacting, you mean other than weather? You mean like farm programs, government programs, that sort of thing?
No, I'm thinking weather. Have you
Mostly
seen these
weather.
drought conditions before?
Yes. Yeah, we've seen these drought conditions before. Matter of fact, we built our home out here in 1976, and we built it in the summer of '76, and we were getting ready to start harvesting wheat, and we were living in Hollis, and it hailed big time, and our hailstorms usually move from the southwest to the northeast. This one moved from the northwest to the southeast, and it wiped out everything we had. And the windows that we were fixing to put in this home the upstairs windows were leaning against the walls upstairs, and it hailed so that it beat the windows out before they were even put in. It was just one of those bad hailstorms, and we get those, and we've sat out on the patio a lot of times and watched tornadoes. Like you say earlier, it's flat out here, so you have the benefit of being able to sit and watch what's coming lots of times.
And you have a cellar to get in?
Basement,
Yeah, we do.
basement,
Yeah, we
that's
do.
all it is.
Yeah, we do.
Fraidy hole.
Yeah. And in a rural area like this, REC is rural electric is a great thing. But like in the ice storm of 2010, we were without electricity for 17 days.
And it was cold.
It was really cold.
cold.
But it was cold, and so we didn't want to, well, we had cattle to take care of for one thing. We couldn't go somewhere and get a motel room. But we didn't want to leave our home, too, because, we had to keep it warm enough where the water wouldn't freeze. We still had water, which was one great thing. So we had a little generator, and we could kind of put a little heat in here once in a while enough to keep from getting too cold.
17 days though.
It was a long
days.
time. It's a long time.
Yeah.
We had a generator, and we could hook up 2 little electric heaters, so each one had a little heater that we would carry around. And then if you wanted to make coffee, that drew a lot of electricity. Of course, it did keep our deep freezes running, which was good news. And so we would, you'd have to unplug a heater or something in order to plug in the coffee pot, and you just kind of learn to
We're all electric.
maneuver. Yeah, we didn't have any choice but to be
So
all
you
electric.
could turn everything else off and turn one water heater on. And then you could
Yes.
take showers every morning. And so, it worked pretty good. We just had to get a little routine, But it worked good.
But that ice storm took fences out, cattle were out all over the country.
Yeah.
It was,
It took weeks to get all the cattle straightened out and back where they went, that sort of thing. I mean, it was nothing unusual to have 100 head of cattle in one place, and you go down there and you had 6 or 8 or something left, you know, everything else had strayed and gone south. Of course, the wind and the snow was coming from the north, so they all went south. It just takes a while, and everybody works together, one of those kind of deals, you know. I've got a certain number of your cattle over here, and, you know, when you get them lotted, why, you take those home, and it works really well.
Community still works together.
Community works together. It's wonderful to live in a rural community.
Yes, there are great things about it in times of need, sickness or death or family. You know, this whole county now, it's countywide one school, and, you know, everybody pulls together and helps and calls and lets people know if somebody needs help, or if someone has passed away and they need help harvesting a crop. They still do that.
Yeah.
Do a lot of that and help if we need.
Where do you do most of your shopping today? In Altus or El Dorado? Or?
Mostly Altus.
We go to church at Hollis, and we may stop there on the way at the grocery store on the way home from lunch. But normally we go to Altus for major shopping.
When Gould was in its prime, did it have a movie theater?
You know what, I don't ever remember it having a movie theater. I can remember in the summer sometimes on the side of the community building, everybody would meet and it'd show a movie outside on the side of the building. But it never had a movie theater. It had, when my mother and dad got, well, before the war, they were in the grocery business up there, and they had WP Grocery. And so they, you know, bought eggs and milk and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of businesses in Gould. There was a little drugstore, and there was a barber shop, and there was a hardware, and at least 3 grocery stores and a bank. And, you know, there was quite a lot of business up there, a couple of elevators and a couple of gyms. But don't ever remember a movie theater. Had a variety store.
Had to go to Altus to the movies then?
Yeah,
Or
Hollis had 2 theaters. Yeah.
But we weren't near as mobile
No,
back
I
then.
don't say no.
You didn't just jump in the car and go to Altus, used to, or even go to Hollis.
No,
For that matter, when we started going together, it was long distance to call from Gould to Hollis. Cost a dime. And that was in '66, I guess, '65.
Well, in the 50s, when you were living on the farm, what were holidays like?
We always had big family get-togethers on Christmas and Thanksgiving. Mother and dad, or dad especially, had 6 siblings in his family, and mother had the one sister she lost during the dust bowl of 29 when she passed away. Yeah. And but the others, you know, would all get together on holidays and stuff. And of course, there were a lot of cousins and stuff, especially on dad's side.
Favorite dishes that she would fix?
You know, she always fixed, you know, of course, a turkey or something like that. But a lot of times in those days, we'd have some quail even. My granddad was an avid hunter. He enjoyed hunting a lot. So she'd always fix some quail and of course, desserts and so forth. And, you know, do you remember special dishes whenever
I
you started to
remember
turn in?
his mother's sister, Vivian, who was older than him, always used to make plum pudding for Christmas. Oh, you had to eat it, but it was, I mean, I like sweets, but it was just about not edible. But we always had to eat some Aunt Vivian's plum pudding.
You're going to be in trouble.
Let any other kids see this. They know it, they had to eat it too.
Would you have a Christmas tree
Yes, we would, yeah.
cut on the farm or bought in town?
No, sometimes we'd go up in the sand hills and cut one, but generally it was a bought tree. And then later it was actually not even a real tree. Mother, for the last several years, didn't have a real tree, did she?
No.
No. But there was always a tree.
They always had most of the family gatherings at their house, though, because his dad was the baby, and the other ones didn't have many children, and I don't know why. But his family was kind of the family that had the children, and where everybody just seemed together at his mother's house. She was used to cooking for a lot and doing, so she always had, as far as I know, everything was at her house.
Yeah, I don't remember all the way, maybe the doors a few times, but not very much. Yeah. It was always a special time.
Did she sew, your mother?
Yes, yeah, she sewed. She'd make her dresses and make us some shirts and stuff like that sometimes. And then when our kids were little, she did a little bit of sewing for them, didn't she?
She made me some maternity dresses.
Yeah.
Of course, all she'd ever had was boys, and so I was kind of a different person, but we always just thoroughly just loved each other, and she made me some maternity dresses, and I don't guess she made any of the little grandsons, but our daughter is the third child. We have 4 boys, and 3 boys and 1 girl, and when she was born, then Grandmother Laverne sewed for her too. She made a lot of, cute outfits and things. Yeah,
Would she use a pattern or make her own?
She usually used a pattern. Yeah. She probably could have made her own. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But she canned and always had a garden.
She did that up until the year before she died.
But we used to always, during wheat harvest, it was always just our family working in wheat harvest. My daddy might drive a truck too,
Yeah.
one of the uncles, but it would be our family. And of course, we'd take meals to the field, and she and I would take turns. We'd alternate meals. We wouldn't each one take them all. We'd share. But the best treat was corn on the cob out of her garden. She'd pull it and bake it and wrap it in foil hot, and that was, everybody wanted grandmother's corn on the cob.
Good eating.
And green beans. She canned.
How about saying helping your dad?
Oh yeah, one day Stephen, our second son, was pretty small, and my daddy was helping us, but we were all sitting out on a blanket eating lunch, and Stephen looked over and he said, "Papa, can I help you eat your corn?" See, Papa hadn't eaten his corn yet. Of course, Daddy was like, "Well, sure," He didn't really want to share.
Was homemade ice cream a regular thing or not? Or
Yeah, it was pretty regular. We'd have homemade ice cream pretty often.
Pretty much
Yeah.
a treat, though. It was
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
a birthday or
Everybody had a
something
freezer though.
special.
We'd make it every so often. And on birthdays and stuff, it was usually angel food cake. Mother always made angel food cake with sugar icing, and sometimes it'd be fresh strawberries and sometimes it'd be canned strawberries or frozen strawberries. Yeah, it was.
She had a Fostoria cake dish that stood on a stand, and it was round like this, that she always put their kids. We've got pictures back when he was little bitty of the angel food cake on top of the Fostoria cake dish. And so we got that one, and then we collected 3 others, and we've given those to our families. Each one of them's got one of the cake plates like grandmother used to have. It's really special to them, I think.
passing on traditions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bookkeeping has probably changed a lot through the years. Can we talk about it
Yes.
from what you remember from your father's time through today?
Dad usually did a lot of his bookkeeping at the breakfast table in the morning with a little pencil about that long. He'd do figuring and stuff. And then at the end of the year, he'd go to his tax person and take his checks, and that was kind of the extent of the bookkeeping. When we joined the operation, of course, Mary Paul was an accountant and had her CPA and everything, and so after we formed a partnership, she began to keep a really good set of books, and so, for the last 20, 30 years, we've been I don't know how long, we've had computer books and stuff, and at the end of each month, we know exactly where we are, and we can mark to market and tell where we are on our inventory, and, it's just completely different than it was, and we even have, what Granddad called the new house, but in the new house, in the basement, he had an old safe, and we've dug in it several times, and we'd find little books and stuff where he wrote down expenses and stuff, where he bought supplies and all that kind of stuff, and his bookkeeping was kind of like what my dad's was, I think.
But he did keep it.
He did keep some books. He did. Yeah, he knew where he was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he sure did. So it's
Even back
always
then,
been.
it was important.
Yeah. It sure is.
And Mary Paul, do you keep the books today on the farm, or?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Robert's told me when I retire, he won't miss me very much. When Mary Paul retires, it's going to be a bad deal. Bad deal.
So you've had to keep up with a lot of new things
Oh,
and changes as well.
Mhm. Yep. Lots of changes continually in all the tax laws and different things that we need to do. It gets, we want to do it right, and we hope we'll leave things in a good shape for someday to come, but I don't know how he's ever going to be able to find everything. I think I've got it filed where it's reasonable, where it's logical, but I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Through the years, we've always depended on stocker cattle. We buy lightweight calves and grow them and either carry them to commercial feed yards or sell them as stocker cattle. But here about 3 or 4 years ago, cattle numbers were getting down, and you could see, that cattle numbers were going to be short here for an extended period of time, and cattle prices, on lightweight calves were going to be pretty expensive. And so Robert and I decided we thought we'd like to get in the mama cow business again. We had been in it a little bit years ago. And we were talking about it. I said, first one you need to convince is your mother, because that's a completely different set of books when you start appreciating mama cows than it is in the stocker business. And so she wasn't a big fan of going into the cow business too much. But
didn't have any choice.
we still run some stockers, but we do run a pretty nice set of mama cows anymore. So
It helps having your CPA in the house.
it does. It does. Yeah.
It sounds like, though, you've got to stay up on things, stock market, everything, technology.
Oh, he's got his DTN machine back there that he sits down at every morning and keeps up with what's going on. And he's in charge of a lot of the risk management, does most of that. Robert does a lot of the day-to-day. Well, he does risk management too, but a lot of the manual labor and actually overseeing a lot of the stuff that goes on. He does a lot of that anymore. He tries to keep Jim from being out in the field and heat and keep him from getting kicked as much as he can.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what y'all remember from the area back then, and I'm sure it's seen many changes as well.
Like what do you mean exactly?
Well, I know what I read somewhere where Gould was initially called Coralie.
Coralie, that was Granddad's original address. Yeah, and Coralie was actually north of Highway 62. And I don't know, I guess there weren't many post offices closer to where his homestead was. But then later, his address was Looney, which is only about 2 miles south of the homestead location. And then later, that area was under the McQueen post office, and then Gould, and it stayed.
And now our post office has been cut back to 4 hours a day.
Yeah, 4 hours a day.
Well, did the town actually move, or just the post
No,
office?
just the post office. No, just the post office. Yeah.
And did you have a rural route mail carrier?
Yes. When I was a kid, we had a mail carrier out of McQueen, which is, y'all came by it on Highway 62, which is about 4.5 miles east, 4 miles east of Gould on 62 there. There's kind of just an old, you can tell where there used to be something there. And there was a McQueen High School across the road from that. My mother actually went there for a while.
We saw a sign from Martha.
Martha?
Oh,
Yeah,
by
that's what
Aldous.
we had, so, yeah.
So we figured maybe she was a sister to Coralie.
Oh, well, it's good of it. Good of it. Yeah.
Didn't your granddad, when he went to record this, he had to go to Mangum
Yes.
in Greer County,
Yes, because Mangum was
To
the
record
county
this.
seat of,
old
You know,
Greer County.
Harmon Jackson and Greer were all old Greer County, Oklahoma.
Old Greer.
And we're never a part of
Yeah.
Indian territory. So we're not any Indian ground, where you got accelerated depreciation if you had land or property that was in Indian territory. We didn't qualify for that at all.
When the Centennial Farm was first homesteaded, it was old Greer County, Oklahoma. And in Harmon County and what is now Greer County was a part of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. And then from 1860 to 1896, Harmon County was part of old Greer County, Texas. And then in 1896, we became a part of Texas that seceded from the state of Texas and became Oklahoma Territory. And then when Oklahoma became a state in November of 07, Old Greer County was part of that, but it included Harmon County. Harmon County was not formed. And then Harmon County was formed as a result of an election held on May 22nd of 1909, and Governor Haskell issued a proclamation then in August of that year declaring the result of the election and formally created what is now Harmon County, Oklahoma. And so it was named after a guy named Judson Harmon, who was an Ohioan who happened to be Attorney General of the United States when Greer County case came before trial in Texas, and when they left Texas, then that's where he was well involved in that, so that's where they picked up the name of Harmon County. And the original post office for my granddad was Corley, Oklahoma, and when the final certificate was issued, it came through the land office in Lawton, Oklahoma, and then in 1907, when that was finalized, when they sent him the letter, they sent it to Looney, Oklahoma, and it was, you know, still part of the old Greer County in those days. And then later it was McQueen and then Gould. And then we really didn't talk exactly about, my granddad farmed the land until 1938, and I think I mentioned it that he gave it to Laverne Payne on her 21st birthday. And then in September of 1938, my mother and dad got married, and so it was kind of her birthday present, and I guess wedding present too, maybe. But
Was she an only child?
no, she was one of 4 children.
Did the other three get property?
They did, I think, when they get, yes, I think they all got property, yeah. Yeah, they have, the Cochran family still owns a lot of property that was, you know, at one time was my granddad's. And then my uncle, his granddad's son, he was killed in a pickup wreck years ago, and his family sold, you know, the portion of the land that was his. And so we own part of that. We bought part of that at auction. And so we own part of that today.
But then the oldest daughter died in 1929.
Yeah, she was never married.
So she was never
Yeah.
involved in the land.
Yeah. She was working at the Gould Bank at the time and got dust pneumonia. Passed away.
Well, while we're talking geography, when we first got here, you were explaining where we were. Can you do that for us again on tape?
Sure. Harmon County is located in the far southwest part of Oklahoma, and the part of Harmon County that we're in is kind of the south and west portion of Harmon County, or the southern portion at least. And we're only about 10 miles from the Texas line to the south, and only about 10 miles from the Texas line to the west. So we're in southwest Oklahoma.
And yet you came all the way to OSU.
And we may be the only county in the state that just has one school. We did work for a while. I'm not sure whether we still
Yeah,
are
there
or not.
may be another county northwest that just has one school, but we in 1990, Gould School closed, and at that time, Gould and Hollis were the only 2 schools, and so from that time, there's just been one school in Harmon County.
And has that been a big impact on this community?
Of course, when you lose your
Losing
school
school,
and
yeah.
begin to lose some of your churches and stuff, yeah, it's a huge impact. Yeah, you know, we still have a bank there, but it has branches in other locations, and but there's not much business left in Gould. We have a wonderful rural water system down here, and during the drought, if it hadn't been for the rural water system, you know, there wouldn't have been any cattle in this area because all the ponds were dry. And their home office is located in Gould, and so it, you know, other than that, there's just not much businesses there.
Well, when your farm equipment breaks down, do you fix it or you have to take it?
Generally, we fix it. I mean, sometimes, you know, we'll have repairmen come out, but we run mostly John Deere equipment, and our dealers in Altus. There was a John Deere parts store in Hollis until about 6 or 8 years ago, and it closed, and so now Altus is our closest dealer.
And what about for a veterinarian?
There's veterinarians in Hollis. There's a couple of veterinarians that do a good job. And,
As a young, new OSU graduate.
yeah, just came
About a
year and a half ago. Yeah.
Do house calls.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
Yes, he does. As a matter of fact, we do some AI work, and he came out and did some AI work for us here this spring. Yeah,
We
that's a
were-
good job.
Built our house out here in '76. We already had the 4 kids and we're living in Hollis, and so we were concerned about the school, how long the Gould School would still be here. And we went and talked to all of the teachers, and they had excellent teachers, just outstanding neighbors who lived here. And all of them assured us, yes, they were going to stay. And of course, they couldn't promise how long the school was going to be there. So we went ahead and built over here, and our kids started, the oldest one started the 3rd grade, and one of them started the 1st grade. And they had gone to Hollis their first years. And they all graduated then at Gould except for the baby. And our daughter was in the last graduating class of 1990. And at that time, our youngest son finished his freshman year here, and then he went to Hollis and graduated from Hollis in '93. But it was a really smooth transition. The people at Hollis made the Gould School kids feel really welcome, and we especially had gone to church over there since we lived there first when we moved back here, and so our kids knew those kids really well. And Gould had a really strong athletic program for as small a school as it was, and they wanted our athletes too, so that helped. It's a good transition.
And for Mary Pollock's okay, so she's a Hollis graduate anyway.
Yes,
So now we have 2 in the family.
yeah,
Yep.
me and my youngest son.
Pretty long bus ride.
And well, by the time he was a sophomore,
He was in high school, so he
yeah,
drove. Yeah.
himself. But now when we moved over here, the school's just a mile up the road, and we were the last ones they picked up. They picked them up, so the kids rode from here to Gould, and we were the first ones they dropped off in the afternoon. So it was like having a private chauffeur. It just couldn't have been any better.
Somebody was late getting around, why you didn't have far to take them.
No. The second son, he was continually late. I'd find him asleep in the shower back there or something, and he missed the bus more than once. And I finally told him, I said, you know what, the next time you miss the bus, you're going to walk. You know, you can just put your little body up there. So sure enough, the next time he missed it, well, I sent him on his way. Of course, I stood and watched him. And as he got up to the highway, there was this old beat-up looking car coming from the north going south. And it came down and turned around and went back and picked him up. And I just about died. I didn't know who it was or who had picked him up. Of course, I was just in a panic. And I called the school, and by that time, they'd let him out. It was some people up there that had just given him a ride to school, but he didn't have to walk again, so. All there was to that.
Well, you mentioned today that you're semi-retired and you spend a lot of your time in risk management. Take me through a typical day today on the farm, in the business.
Well, it would depend a whole lot on the season of the year, but right now we've got mama cow herd that we're taking care of, so we check water and stuff on them every day, and we still run some stocker cattle, and so when you have fresh calves, where you go through them at least once a day for sick and for problems, and so you do that, and you try to get those kind of things done early in the morning before it gets too hot, and then of course Robert's not here this week, but last week he was spending all his time spraying. We were kind of getting everything sprayed over. We've had some wonderful rains, and so we were getting some weed and grass problems on some of our stubble ground, and so he got everything sprayed over and cleaned up, and so you spend most of your time doing that. Periodically during the day, you either get a report on your iPad or come by and check a DTN or something on the radio or something about what the markets are doing, and you're always interested in what's going on there, and of course we try to keep grain prices seem to indicate that they were fixing to trend lower, so we've got some of our wheat that'll be harvested next summer already priced on the futures board. And so we kind of do that. And we've got some cattle in commercial feed yards that come out next February, and so we've got some options, against those for any possible, any breaking prices for some unknown reason. So you're always interested in checking on the markets, and then you just have normal business things, in the afternoons that you have to do. We've got government programs that you try to keep up with. You've got government programs that right now that are going through a sign-up period. After we've gone through this severe drought, the new farm bill had a program in it for livestock forage assistance, and so in the process now of getting stuff together for those paperwork for those, and just there's always something to do on the farm. Whether it's working on equipment or working on fence or taking care of cattle or doing the normal paperwork that comes with it or what it is, there's always something to do.
And how often do you check in at home?
I'm by here pretty often, usually at least once in the morning, once in the afternoon.
For lunch?
Yeah, and eat lunch at home. And then we carry cell phones all the time, so we're always in contact and stuff.
Back in the day when you didn't have those, though.
It was a different deal. Even when we lived in Hollis, we had radios, and we put up a tower in Hollis where we could, talk out here, but those weren't very dependable. And
No, when we first married, if I wanted to talk to him, I had to call his mother, who lived out here on the highway, and hopefully he would come by there, and I could leave a message. Cell phones were unheard of to start with.
it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can keep up with, when Robert's spraying and stuff, he carries an iPad, to keep up with stuff, and carries a phone.
Do you use the mesonet very often?
We do. Yeah, we sure do. We look at it real often, especially if we're away from home and want to know what it's doing here.
Or if
We
it's
can check the
if it's
mesonet.
showered, first thing he gets up and goes looks at the mesonet and sees
Yeah.
how much it says
Yeah.
Harmon County got.
Marvin County Station's out here about 3 miles from here, so it's fairly accurate on what it says that they got and what we got. And the colored map that they use is wonderful. You can tell if south part of the county maybe got a little bit more rain or something. And it's pretty accurate.
Oh yeah, we like the mesonet.
Yeah, we like the mesonet. Yeah. Yeah.
We've pretty much covered our questions except for the very last one. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off? Or maybe we skip something you think we need to include?
Well, that's kind of interesting about how this area around the farm has changed, about what it used to be like when your granddad was there.
Oh, yeah. When he homesteaded, to hear Mother talk about it and stuff. And of course, all of our places, all of our farms have names. We got the Coble Place and the Jordan Half and the Harkins Place and, everything, Hendricks Place, and, everything's got a name, and it goes back to, families that owned it years and years and years ago. And, and there was people on every quarter, there was just people everywhere in all communities. At one time, Harmon County, the old timers say, had 41 schools. And, some of them were just grade schools, but there was 41 schools. And there was just people everywhere. And of course, nowadays, Harmon County has a population of, I don't know, depending on who you talk to, probably 2,500 people at the most, and one school, and not very many people living in the country. And lots of things have changed that. Of course, CRP, there are proponents and there are opponents of CRP, because you took so much farmland out of production that that land didn't need the inputs to farm it. So it hurt some rural businesses perhaps, but it benefited a lot of people too, and it benefited the long-term usability of the land. So there's just it's just been tremendous change from the time Granddad homesteaded and shortly after he homesteaded.
Do you still retain the mineral rights, or is that even an issue here?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's gotten to be an issue. Yeah, we do have mineral rights on the majority of the places. Maybe not all of them, but from half to all of them. But we bought, I don't know, 2 or 3 farms in the last few years that, you used to buy a farm and you'd say, I assume the mineral rights go with it, right? Yeah, you can have them, But nowadays, it's no mineral rights change hands, Everybody's hoping someday the boom will get into this area.
So far, it hasn't on
Well,
what you
it-
have.
5 years ago, we had a little rush and everything leased up and we,
It brought a lot of money into Harmon
yeah,
County.
it brought a lot of
A lot of
money.
new fences, you could
I
tell.
know.
Helped a great deal.
Nearly everything in Harmon County, everything in the southern half of Harmon County did lease. I think there was some maybe in the northern part of the county that didn't, but everything in the southern part did. And it brought a lot of money into Harmon County at a time when we needed it. But they came in and drilled about 3 wells and I suppose didn't find what they were looking for, so there's not any activity here now, and most of those leases are beginning to expire. So most of it's available. If you know anybody that wants to lease some land, some available.
Yeah, we've noticed there wasn't a lot of activity driving through
No.
as in other parts of the state
Yeah.
right now.
When you
Kingfisher's
get down,
really busy.
yeah, Kingfisher's big time. Yeah, it's getting to be pretty active up around Stillwater.
Yeah.
We're
If you
shaking.
get down southeast of El Dorado, there's some activity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's limited.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's in Jackson County. So, yeah, we'd like to see it get again.
One of the questions were there times when the farm did not make money?
Sure.
I thought we liked that question.
From the CPA.
Yeah, you could share more if you would.
I think there were lots of times even
I think
way
there were lots of
before
those
then.
times, yeah.
Well, when it did have difficult economic times on the farm, did government programs help?
Certainly they helped. Many of those, were, well, they weren't disaster related in the earlier days when we started farming. They were just price support type. The insurance nowadays that we have, that we use and most people in this area use, is called revenue coverage. So it takes into effect your base yield estimate plus your price, and that's based on what 5-month period what the price of the commodity was, and so it's much better than just a per acre guarantee, or it's better than a deficiency payment when prices get cheap. I think we're all seeing that our commodity programs are headed in that direction where insurance is going to be the basic program for agriculture. That's what this new farm bill is headed toward, evidently, and it's working quite well for this area, really. You have skin in the game, but yet it's still subsidized somewhat, but it's working well, and it's a good way to manage risk, and it's not farming because for the insurance doesn't make you money, but you get your cost of production back. Keeps you in business.
Right.
Keeps you in business. We had much rather sell a crop, but on the other hand, it's good to have that insurance when you don't have a crop to sell.
Mm-hmm.
It's been good for that.
And have you worked with your the local politicians in terms of the farm bill? Do you take steps to make sure your voice is heard?
We do communicate with Frank Lucas on occasion, and Frank's done a really good job, and I'm involved in some boards that we, together we share our voice on occasion, and so yeah, we get involved a little bit.
What is it that has kept you want him to stay on the farm and to keep the farm in the family? Well,
Oh, I don't know.
What
Farming
likes the
just gets
pull?
in their blood. Yeah, yeah. It's just a good way of life. You know, it can be as fast or as slow as you want it to be. It's very rewarding as far as the community and you know, the I don't know, getting out and working with livestock and crop production and stuff, and being there when the fresh rain smells so good. And, you know, it's just a gift to be able to do that, I think, and it's a blessing to have been able to be involved in production agriculture. And hope some of our kids continue to. We have a lot of grandkids, and we have 13 grandkids, and you know, none of them are. One of them has finished college already, but he wants to go into law, and the others have not. You know, don't know what direction they want to take yet, but someone may be a producer one of these days.
I think it's in his blood, is what I think. Because when we were in school at Stillwater, he just had to get out and go right around and just get out and feel the dirt and dig in it. You know, I didn't really see the advantage of that, but that's just what he wanted to do. He couldn't wait to get home in the summers and go to work, get out and do the physical labor and be a part of it. And I think there's nothing like seeing your family work together. Harvest has always been one of my very favorite times of the year, to see our family work together and be together and be so tired, and then when you get through, there's such a feeling of accomplishment. I just think there hadn't been any better way of life that we could have had.
I would say the unique smells are
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mornings are the best time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, we just sit out here a lot of mornings and just drink coffee and in amazement. God's wonderful creation.
Yeah.
How blessed we are to live where we do.
That means a lot to you.
Yes.
Our usually last question is, then what do you expect for the next 100 years for the farm?
Ooh, my goodness. I don't know what I put it at, but
Hope, expect, or
know.
see?
agriculture today is you know, big business. I mean, you know, you risk a lot every time you put in a crop because the cost of production is so high, and you risk a lot every time you invest in livestock now because they're high. So, you know, I guess agriculture today is run by profit and loss in many cases, as other big businesses are. But, you know, there are a lot of other factors besides, you know, our economic factors, you know, in relation to the land, such as, you know, caring for the land and trying to leave it for the next generation, and caring for wildlife, and, you know, enjoying that. I mean, nature's a balance, and you know, our wildlife has suffered a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, but I noticed the last few weeks that I'm beginning to see a lot more quail than I've seen in years. So, you know, maybe some of those are coming back, but the majority of the land in this area, you know, is a soil type and capability class of, you know, producing small grains and cotton and that sort of thing. And I would think that, you know, that 100 years from now that there's still going to be a need for, you know, for food.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that in some way or another it'll still be producing food. I mean, the tractors may not take an operator. You may sit in your office and do it all on computer, you know, and manage things in that way, but I would think that there'll still be food being produced, and crops being grown, and livestock being sold, and, you know, but my goodness, the way it's changed in the last 10 to 20 years, there's no telling what it'll be like.
Things your dad couldn't
Yeah.
have even died in
Yeah,
2005, things he
couldn't be
couldn't have even
thought of.
dreamed of are going on now.
You know,
So I don't know what we can even start.
you know, you're seeing embryo transfers, and you're seeing one cow produce dozens of calves that are all genetically equal, and so you're seeing tremendous improvements in quality of beef and in efficiency in the production and so forth, and I'm sure that'll continue to get better. And they're working on genetics now in wheat, where wheat will produce in droughty conditions. Drought-resistant wheat, I don't know how it does that, but some wheat will produce much better with that, with very limited amount of water. And so, we may see tremendous production, and I don't know, it'd be interesting to see. I hope I get to hang around long enough to kind of see what happens the next 10 to 20 years.
Just not cotton anymore since you
Yeah,
learned
there's not cotton
that lesson
anymore.
early.
Yeah, there's not cotton anymore. There's some good cotton farmers in this area, though. There's some guys that can raise that cotton and do a tremendous job. When I was young, you had 2-bale cotton, 1,000-pound cotton was tremendous yields, and my goodness, there's some of these guys now that are producing 4-bale cotton, and it's really, and it's completely, we talked about the high-tech stuff in the wheat, where we specialize in our inputs and so forth. They're even more so in cotton. It's very specific on how they treat it, and growth stimulants and so forth. It's great. But
Well, now you have air-conditioned cabs.
oh yeah, yeah, we've had those for a while.
They just kind of need him to turn the corners anymore, turn around the end of the roads, and that's
Do
about
you
it.
ever get in one and drive one?
I don't drive one, no, but I do ride with him. So. Now they've even got the buddy seat built into them. You
Mm-hmm.
used to sit on the top of a water can or something and support yourself the best you could, but yeah, it's it's a different world.
Have you ladies seen any modern equipment?
We've seen one combine that was brand new, like delivered the day
Okay,
before we got
okay,
there.
okay.
And it was a huge step to get up into
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
We got some.
They hadn't figured out how to operate it at that
Oh,
point
yeah.
either.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite a deal. I mean, all your changes are on the go. You don't stop and make adjustments. You just change, and it's very interesting.
So you don't have to buy your meat at the market, do you?
No.
You get prime selection.
I do, and I'm pretty rotten too, that's for sure. But it's amazing, some of our, not our immediate relatives, but our distant relatives who just know we're in agriculture, almost, you get the feeling sometimes think that you're not quite as educated or quite up to par on things as some of them are about different things, and we're not in their fields, but I think some come down here and they're astounded when they see what goes on, or they get in some of that equipment and they find out how much the risk management takes and the things you have to know and the things you have to do, that you have to be pretty educated, and I think my guys are pretty sharp and pretty good at what they do. So I couldn't, they are professionals. You can't fly by the seat of your pants anymore and be successful in agriculture. Mm-hmm. And his granddad, I think, had to be very smart and very wise in what he did, because he was able to buy land at a time when some people weren't able to, and was very wise in his decisions and the way that he farmed. And I think he handed that pride and that knowledge that he had down through the generations. You've been able to see his family, all his family, still have that pride in being a farmer.
He brought in one of the first tractors in Harmon County.
Mm-hmm.
Mother never did know for sure if it was the first or not, but she called it a Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And we Googled that to see if that was what kind of tractor that was and stuff. We never did find out much about it, but she said it was a Titanic tractor that he brought in. And he was on the conservation board back in the 30s even. He was real involved in conservation efforts. And then my dad was on the conservation board for over 30 years. So we've always been, in agriculture, we yet been conscious of the fact that we need to conserve the soil and leave it better than we found it. And,
Or were there gender roles? Did your mother and grandmother do similar things to you as your father and grandfather, or were they?
You know,
House and farm.
Mother always talked about taking care of her chickens and her turkeys and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure she had some household duties, but I don't think Mother ever drove a tractor that I'm aware of, or anything like that.
And I never heard of your grandmother doing that.
No, I never heard of my grandmother doing that. I think they had their things around the house that they took care of, you know, the garden and the animals and some of that kind of stuff, but I don't think they actually ran the farm as such, you know.
Didn't do the bookkeeping. Well, do you have a garden you can today?
I don't.
You don't.
I
Just
didn't,
curious.
I didn't inherit that ability.
Well, what led you to apply for the Centennial Farm status?
You know, my mother had talked about this for a long time, about when the farm was 100 years old, and she got sick and earlier, you know, before that, and Mary Paul's the one that spearheaded the application and all that kind of stuff, and Mary Paul wanted to rush it through as soon as we could after we reached the Centennial status, because Mother was taking cancer treatments and stuff, and so we got it approved, and she got to
See it
see it and everything.
before she died.
Yeah.
To do the ceremony or presentation, whatever they did to,
I think they really just
I
mailed
think they just mailed letters and
Mhm.
stuff and
the signage and.
yeah, certificate and the signage and stuff.
But she helped me with all the applications. She had all the information and knew where things were. So she, you know, was able to do that. So we were just thrilled to be able to get that done while she was still alive.
gift.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
That's a good place to stop, I
Okay.
guess.
All right.
Sounds good to
Okay,
me.
thank you so much for sharing. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.